And sweet precious time. There we go. So everybody, this is Mr. Leo. He is the most freshest of meat here with us today. It's your first call you're jumping into, right, Leo?
Yep, excited to be here.
So what we usually like to do is initiation. No, I'm just kidding. But what we usually like to do is just give us a quick little synopsis about yourself, 30, 60 seconds, and then tell us what you hope to accomplish by joining the mastermind.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Leo. I've been in real estate for a few years now, going on my 5th year. I started as an agent, worked in residential and commercial real estate, invested in some properties on my own as an individual and as an LP. I got connected with someone else who I was doing a syndication with for the past year. However, as you all know, the market's kind of tough. The bid-ask spread is kind of high. So we're just sort of maintaining that deal flow and hoping something that would come. What I'm hoping to get out of this mentorship is just to connect with people, learn something new from you guys, maybe teach you all something. And yeah, spread the wealth, purchase some properties together and have some fun.
Have some fun. That's what I'm talking about. All right. I appreciate it, Leo.
Of course. Thanks.
Everyone else here is a geezer. Been here for a while. No, I'm just kidding. You guys all haven't been here for super long amount of time. But anyway, we'll go ahead and jump in. So for you, Leo, and anyone else that hasn't heard this yet on any of the calls that we've done, we're kind of transitioning to Monday calls being a little bit more designated for some of the beginner basics of kind of like it, not necessarily entry level, but there's a little entry level to it, as well as just really refining and getting good at the basics. I think about it from a musician perspective. I don't know who out there is a musician, but if you like, for a drummer, for myself, if you don't know the basic rudiments, then you're going to be a terrible drummer your entire life. Like, if you don't know the basics, you're just going to suck forever. So even though some of us may be a little bit more experienced, sometimes just refreshing yourself with the basics is always a good thing. But anyway, that's going to be Monday calls. And then Thursday calls are going to be a little bit more advanced, where we talk about some more deeper detailed topics. So since it's Thursday, what we're talking about today is a continuation of what we've been covering with asset management. And Samir, I think you're really going to like this one. We talk about LIHTC today, and just a little bit of some definitions about what it actually is, give you guys the high level overview of it, and then talk about what it looks like to actually invest in a LIHTC deal. We've done so twice, and they're like our 2 best performing assets. So give you guys a little bit of description there. So let's jump in. Everybody see this? Sweet. So, well, now we got more people jumping in after I just gave my spiel. Oh, I'll have to watch the recording. So, asset management part 5, LIHTC. So I'm also going to try to do a little bit of a better job. I'm going to go back and look at all the previous trainings we've done and just label things a little bit better. And for those of you that haven't been a part of the calls recently, both of my business partners, Matt and Reggie, have also joined us in the mastermind. So they're actually going to start joining us on the calls next Monday. So there'll be more on the calls. They'll be helping us more with curriculum. Reggie's kind of like refining some of the program a little bit. And Matt's really good at systems and operating things. So he's going to better systematize the program here. And anyway, to make things better. So LIHTC overview. Number 1, what the heck is LIHTC? Well, it stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. It's a federal government tax credit that since 1986 has helped facilitate the construction and rehabilitation of 3.6 million affordable housing units throughout the U.S. Unlike tax deductions, which create a reduction in taxable income, tax credits provide a dollar for dollar reduction and an investor's tax liability, which can be incredibly attractive. Credits directly reduce the tax liability dollar for dollar, while those deductions reduce tax liability by the amount deducted multiplied by the taxpayer's marginal tax rate. For those in the lower income tax brackets or quantiles, tax credits are more valuable than deductions since there's less income to deduct, and refunds provide more disposable after-tax income. And then by contrast, deductions are preferred by the higher income taxpayers, which would be us as we start to make more money, right, in this business, since they're subject to higher marginal tax rates on income they would otherwise exclude. LIHTCs help fund the new construction and rehabilitation of a variety of different property types, including traditional complexes, single-family homes, and 2 to 4 unit multifamily properties, or even duplexes and triplexes. In addition, LIHTCs can fund the conversion of structures like schools, warehouses, motels into multifamily properties. Properties using these credits must generally cap rents for some or all of the units at a certain percentage of a location's area median income. It's the whole basis behind LIHTC. Is once you buy an asset or once you build this asset, the majority of this is for construction, but it can also be done for rehabilitation like we just talked about. But let's say when you construct a new property, you'll be given these tax credits with the basis that you are going to rent this property at whatever they're deeming to be affordable or low income rate, which is all going to tie into what the area median income is. So LIHTC competition terms, variations. Competition for the LIHTC program is fierce, as each state only receives a limited amount of funds each year. Based on population and a specific multiplier, the program costs an estimated $10.9 billion annually, according to analysis by the Federation of American Scientists. LIHTC generally has a 15-year compliance period, during which the property must remain affordable and before which the property cannot be sold. This, however, is only a minimum, and many states have more restrictive rules in place. And it's not always the case that you have to own the asset within the 15-year time frame. Sometimes you can sell it. Again, it's different states have different kind of regulations. And the deals, we bought a deal in Mississippi and a deal in Alabama, and both of those deals could be sold before the 15-year compliance period was up. You also have an option to renew if you wanted to. So after 15 years is up, you could choose to just renew for another 10, 15 years. Most people don't want to do that, right? But if you do, obviously you get more tax credits. So that's the incentive of just continuing this run. But anyway, investors should also know that the low-income housing tax credits come in two varieties. There's a 4% and a 9% LIHTC. 4% LIHTC subsidizes 30% of a project costs, while the 9% covers 70% of a project's costs. And again, that all comes specifically to like how many credits they're actually going to give you for building out this property. And it depends on how below median income, how affordable it's actually going to be.
Josh,
LIHTC, what's that?
I'm sorry. So just to get my brain around this, so what percentage does the entire project have to be low income? Is it like a percentage? So you say, okay, if you've got 200, or let's just say 100 units, 30 of them can be low income, so that way it qualifies, or does the whole enchilada have to be?
Yeah, I think we're about to cover that here.
Okay, sorry, I'll let you continue.
But yeah, most of the time, no, it's not 100% that has to be quantified. That's why they have these 70%, 40%, whatever, 30% projections here. They're not necessarily requiring you to build the asset and have 100% affordable. That would be something closer to like Section 8, but even Section 8 isn't necessarily a development product. It's more so just a housing benefit, a program that pays renters depending on how they qualify. This is more specific to the state and the tax credits they're willing to give you depending on this new build or reconstruction, new addition to low income in the area that you're infusing. And oftentimes LIHTC deals are not always found in low income areas. Like they're not always found in your C to B class, like terrible spots. We bought a LIHTC deal last year that was an A class property. And it just was more affordable for 55 plus community members. So it had to stay 55 plus, but it was in the affordable realm, and it was in a really fantastic spot, like right by the water. And And it was built all to code, built in 2013, all hurricane resistant. It was built like 10 feet above ground, and between where the ground level is and the 10 feet is just like a really nice parking garage. Anyway, super nice. They're not always in really bad areas. So the upside is really the loss to lease play, which we'll get into. The developer of a property utilizing LIHTC can either be a for-profit or a nonprofit group. This may surprise some people since LIHTC investors do not have an active role in the development process of an affordable property apart from investing funds. However, it's usually easier for nonprofits to access LIHTC. Each state's mandated to set aside 10% of the LIHTC funds for nonprofit developers, as this is likely to result in a greater amount of units with rents targeted at very low income residents. Using LIHTC has other benefits for nonprofits. At the end of the 15-year compliance period, nonprofits can generally exercise an option to buy the property in question, gives the LIHTC investor syndicator a ready buyer while helping the nonprofit create a permanent source of affordable housing. Plus, as the developer of the property, the nonprofit will generally receive various fees, for example, developer fees, partnership management fees, that can help it pay its overhead expenses. So it's kind of like a syndication, but it's just structured as let's say like a church or someone, like a church bought or wanted to build one of these types of deals. I've never seen anything like that, but it's an option. So wanted to give this detailed description of LIHTC as I could for you guys, since we're in the advanced section, right? So number 4, LIHTC and HUD multifamily financing. HUD multifamily loans like the HUD 221D4 and HUD 223F can be used for both for-profit and nonprofit development. And in both instances, the loans work particularly well with the LIHTC program. For each of the loan types, affordable properties are permitted LTV ratios of up to 87%, while properties with 90% or more low-income units may have LTVs even higher. So again, the LIHTC is going to be very specific to how you actually design it and how the state requires it. And the state is going to say, in this area, I need 90% of the units to be low income, or I need 70% of the units to be low income. And that will give your basis of course, what you're actually going to be able to operate at after you build it out. But it'll also depict the structure that you do both on the loan side and the tax credit side when you're basically going through your due diligence process. In addition, Section 8 and LIHTC properties only need to pay 0.45% PMI compared to the 0.65%, which PMI is private mortgage insurance, compared to the 0.65% required for market rate properties. And the reason that you would pay that is because you're getting a loan for lesser than 20% down, right? Anytime you have anything less than 20%, you have to pay PMI, which just then HUD, the financing program itself, is insuring your loan, paying for insurance so that if you default, they're not going to come after you. You're insured through this government program, HUD, and HUD is just going to then take the loan and pay whatever is required. And for that, you have to pay a percentage. But because this is a Section 8 or LIHTC property, you get to pay a lesser percentage, about 20 basis points lesser on PMI because of this incentive here. Finally, debt service coverage ratio requirements are significantly lower for affordable housing properties at just 1.15x compared to the DSCR requirement of 1.2 for market rate properties. And DSCR changes for every asset. Some banks require 1.2, some 1.25, some 1.3, kind of fluctuates with where interest rates are and where their actual risk tolerance is for the particular market or asset that you're looking to invest in. So now answering your question, Paul, 5 eligibility requirements for the low-income housing tax credit program. In order to qualify for the LIHTC program, a building must reserve a certain number of units for low-income residents. In most cases, they must either follow one of 2 rules, the 2050 rule or the 4060 rule. 2050 rule requires that at least 20% of a property's units be rented to tenants who earn 50% or less of the area median income, while the 4060 rule requires that at least 40% of a property's units must be rented to tenants who earn 60% or less of the average median income. Additionally, gross rent tests must also be passed. The test requires that rents for the property do not exceed 30% of either 50% or 60% of AMI. The exact percentage depends on the number of rental units set aside for the credit. And LIHTC properties are required to pass these income and rent tests for a period of no less than 15 years, or risk having the tax credits recaptured by the local housing authority, which would be terrible. Think you're not paying taxes on all the stuff, but then you get slapped with all this tax bill and your property's stuck at low income. The worst of both worlds. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we've covered up to this point before we kind of dive into the benefits of loss to lease and what that actually, how that plays a factor into this whole LIHTC thing? Wow, no questions. Can't tell if that means I'm really good or if that means you guys are all super confused.
That means that there's too many questions to ask.
Well, we got
So-
time. It's only 5:52.
So Josh, on these, to qualify for some, so what you're telling us basically is we're gonna say, oh, this portion, this. To get more financing, to just go straight forward. To get more financing, we could go directly to like a bank, or should we go to like the city or something of that sorts and say, hey, I've got this property, I'm looking to, make it some for affordable housing. What kind of financing can I get from you all? What's the process for that?
Yeah, you would have to ask the local municipalities whether or not they would even accept a rehabilitation of an asset to be turned into a LIHTC type property. That'll be the first step. If it can, then sure, and then we'll go through the process. But if it can't, then there's no sense in asking. So you'd ask the local municipality. If they said yes, then you would start to work through the process of which rule you want to follow, how much is going to be low income, how much is not. And that's all going to play a larger role into the overarching business plan of the asset. And then you can also go to different agency loan programs like we were talking about, some of that HUD multifamily financing. And that's where you can get some of these really favorable rates, specifically if you're designating it as a LIHTC property. Now, the flip side is that a lot of times when we're doing syndications, when we're getting into these assets, if you guys have been around for any number of time and seen me ever underwrite a deal, we usually don't underwrite it for more than 75%, max like 80% LTV. It's because we just don't want that much risk. The higher LTV, the higher the risk.
Right.
And so we usually like to have a little bit more equity in the asset to give us more of that buffer zone there. Not only does it help us feel confident and comfortable, but equally it helps our investors. And so something to be said there, but you could potentially get a higher LTV if you absolutely needed to. And if you felt confident and whatever the business plan was, and if your investors felt confident, then it's an option.
Okay.
Josh, are you going to cover kind of how they phase out? Because I've seen a few deals where, they've got 5 years or 7 years left. Aren't there some restrictions on they grandfather some of the tenants in for a period of time, things like that?
Yeah, we'll cover that when we get to the loss to lease part, because that's really the big actual value add of acquiring an asset that already exists as a LIHTC.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's kind of two sides of the coin, ones that already exist that you're acquiring, and then ones that you're acquiring that maybe you want to turn into. We've never actually acquired a property that we wanted to turn into a LIHTC. Both the LIHTC deals we have were already existing and they were kind of phasing out of the program. Those are the ones we found massive success with. And so I'm not 100% familiar with how the actual credits operate, but I have talked to other sponsors before that have done like actually built LIHTC deals, and they love the credits. They're all about it. They're like, yeah, the freaking tax incentives are fantastic. And it equally bleeds over to their investors as well. So when they build out this LIHTC deal, if they're, syndicating it and raising a bunch of money from investors, since they own a portion of it, they get a share of those credits, which equally helps their tax situation dollar for dollar, as opposed to reduction.
Hey, Josh, and that does this add up with the cost seg study? Meaning, even though you do a cost segregation study and you're going to save a bunch on taxes because of that, it's still worth it to do, this LIHTC deal. It would, those two advantages would add up.
From a tax credit perspective, you're asking?
Well, yeah, if this strategy provides tax benefits, I'm just asking if it would add up in addition to the cost segregation benefits. Because when you do a cost seg, you already have a lot of advantages for taxes. You basically reduce.
Yeah.
So I just want to understand if you would add up those two benefits to pay even less taxes, essentially,
Yeah, the cost segregation is its own individual thing. I mean, it's the depreciation you were already going to get from this asset, regardless of if it was low income or regular market rate rents. And then you're just accelerating it by getting granular with each individual, piece of this property. So the cost seg could be in, an added benefit to the tax credits that you would receive. If you created, so the thing is with the tax credits, with these LIHTC deals, either A, if you're building, right, constructing, or you're rehabilitating and you're going to turn the property into a LIHTC deal, that's the only time you're actually going to receive any form of tax credits with these assets. On a deal where you're just doing what we've done with our 2D LIHTC deals that we own, where we're buying it and we're basically phasing it out of the program, we don't receive any tax credits because we're phasing it out. Even though there may have been a year or two left on the program when we bought it, we don't get to benefit in the credits themselves. The builder or the person that rehabilitated this to be constructed like a LIHTC, they got all of the actual tax credits. And so the sole reason that I'm wanting to buy it is for what we're about to talk about, which is the loss to lease play. Because oftentimes with LIHTC deals, there isn't a lot of CapEx required to take the property from where it is today to where it can be. So it's truly just a management and like lease up play, and a lot less of a big construction job in order to capitalize on higher rents.
Okay.
Sweet. All right, we'll keep going. Why is loss to lease important? Loss to lease, you guys know what this is for the most part, but I thought I'd give a nice refresher here. Loss to lease is important from two different perspectives: investor considering a potential purchase and the owner currently managing the property. From an investor standpoint, the presence of the loss to lease line item on the operating statement can be an immediate tip off that there's an opportunity to raise rents, which is why it may be considered a positive thing. Usually loss to lease is a result of market rents rising faster than actual rents, which is a sign of a strong market and our inefficient management. Again, back to that management play. If you know you can streamline that and make sure that you can execute a lot better than the current management, then boom, ton of value add right there. Either way, it's an opportunity because commercial multifamily properties valued on cash flow, and closing the loss to lease gap can add the value quickly and result in a quick win for an investor, just like a LIHTC deal. From an owner standpoint, loss to lease can be a metric that's a leading indicator of a property manager who isn't paying close enough attention to the surrounding market. By failing to raise rents to remain in sync with the broader market, property manager is actually costing the owner money and rent that could have been obtained but is lost to a lower lease price. And that's not always indicative of just a poor manager, but oftentimes it usually is. Sometimes it's due to the fact that if it is a LIHTC deal, then there may be some loss to lease because you know where market rate is. So there's probably going to be a lot of loss to lease if it's a LIHTC deal, because technically, according to the program, they can only reach a certain level of rent. They can't actually. So let's say they're currently getting $700 a month in rent, and the peak of what they could charge, according to the program, is $775 a month, and market rate is like $1,100. So, you know, in a year or two, when the program exits, you can get up to $1,100. So 700 to 1,100, you have a $400 a month delta. The loss to lease is huge, and there's massive value add potential since you know you're going to hold on to the asset for longer than 2 years, and you can do all the work to prepare it for that over the course of that 2-year time frame. Although technically there still is some actual value add in the immediate sense. Someone just say help.
No, sorry. I called for my wife, Kelly.
Oh,
Yeah, that definitely sounded like you said help.
Help.
it sounded like someone was dying. Like,
I was like, uh-oh.
Josh,
I never tried to press the mute button so fast in my life.
It did not work. Josh, I have a question.
What's up?
So in like the case that you're pointing out, right? $700, market rate's $1,100. When the LIHTC is over, you know, you have this big bump that you can do, right?
Mhm.
Well, the current tenants that you have in there that are at that 700 rate, does that mean that when you've got to prepare for that, when you do this transition at that point in time, that you're going to drop to some ridiculous occupancy, 40, 50, 60%, and then be backfilling with tenants that can actually afford this new big bump because it's such a drastic change?
Well, it's not all going to happen simultaneously. It's going to be the same thing as there's ebb and flows with when people sign leases. Not everyone signed a lease on January 1st, right? So there's going to be five, let's say call it a 50 unit property. There's going to be like 5 or 6 leases that come up in January, and the program ended in December of the previous year. There's going to be 3 in February. There's going to be 5 in March. And then during like leasing season, like April, May, June, July, August, there's going to be like 10 each month. So you'll still have a variety of time at which leases are going to come up, and you're going to bump those up to market. So you have some, it won't be just a drastic drop. And the best thing about that is that you can test the market a little bit. So as you get ready to get ready to raise the rents on whoever's getting ready to leave, you can determine, one, are these tenants like true low income housing type tenants where they legitimately just can't afford a higher market, or have they just been getting a steal of a deal this entire time with the way that the LIHTC program's been structured? So you'll determine whether or not they're actually capable of paying that higher level of rent, which obviously is the best way to not have massive amounts of vacancy. But if they do leave, then you're also able to determine, is this truly market? Now, your determination based on your market research was that 1100 was market rate for the area. But let's say 6 leases come up, all 6 tenants decide they can't pay that anymore, so they all move out. You do the quick turn. And then when you go to actually lease these up, you have no one backfilling over a 30 to 45 day time frame. You're like, wow, okay, this obviously is not market rate. We're going to have to drop this back down. And you're able to test it with those 6 units instead of taking the entire property all at one time to this drastically low occupancy like you're talking about. Does that make sense? I'm gonna take it to make sense. All right, where were we? Oh, yes, the whole loss to lease concept. So that specific example I was giving, the final thing I was saying, you have 700 to 1100. That's the actual market rate loss to lease, which technically isn't going to be in the P&L, or it might if they're really trying to make you pay some kind of pro forma rent or pro forma purchase price. But if it's not, then you know at the very least there may be $75 of variation there, because we're actually looking at a deal right now. Reggie just walked it like 2 days ago, and it's another LIHTC deal, and it's at like, I think $683 or something is like current rent that they're collecting as an average across the property. But the LIHTC highest level of LIHTC rent that you can collect is like 800 or like 830. Like there's even a big delta between just where LIHTC can be taken with this specific asset. So there's even value adds to the actual LIHTC program itself on top of where actual market rate is even after that, because LIHTC usually tries to follow the average median income like we were talking about. So as average median income's going up, as inflation's going up, they're raising what rents are that you can actually charge for the program. Anyway, all something that you'll take into account. So number 7, loss to lease example, to try to just give another example from an actual like valuation perspective. To illustrate the importance of the loss to lease concept and its potential impact on price, consider the following example. Assume that 150 unit apartment complex has average rents of 900 per month. The annual rent for the entire property would be 900 times 150 equals 135,000. Missed a 0 times 12 equals 1.62 million annual rent. Now assume that the property manager has performed a market-wide survey of comparable properties, and you concluded that the market rental rate is $1,000. In this case, the property's annual income should be 1.8 when you do the same calculation. The difference between the two figures is 180,000, which is actually what the loss to lease is. Continuing the example, assume that the property has annual expenses of $1 million, means that closing the loss to lease gap, raising rents on all units by $100 a month, would result in an increase to the NOI from $620,000 to $800,000. So finally, and this is where the impact is significant, assuming that the market cap rate for this property is 6%, the increase in NOI means that the property value raises from 10.3 million to 13.3 million just from closing the loss to lease gap. Huge win for the owner and their investors. So you take the same way we've always come up with valuation. You take the actual NOI that you've been able to create over the course of the last 12 months, the actual, not any kind of pro forma, and then you just divide that by whatever the cap rate is. So the assumption here was that the cap rate is 6%. So whatever your market rate cap is. And that basically exponentializes the value that you've added just from that loss to lease, not even because you did a bunch of renovations, not because you had this 3-year long CapEx expenditure, not because you put $5 million into the property, literally just because you managed it better than the last property manager or the last owner. So huge opportunity for value add with these LIHTC deals and with these simple loss to lease plays. So some risks to actually raising the rent, similar to what you were asking, Jonathan. Choose the example above. I chose the example above to demonstrate the point that raising rents to market rates can have an outsized impact on property value. But in reality, it isn't always this easy. It's two challenges. One, can't be done all at once, must be done on a unit by unit basis when each lease comes up for renewal, which means that it can take an entire year or longer in the case of each LIHTC to complete the process. In a fast growing market rents are constantly changing and can be a difficult target to hit. But again, the pro to that is the fact that you're not going massively reduced in this, 40 to 50% occupancy level. And you're really able to somewhat benefit from that. And then number two, raising rents also increases the risk that the existing tenant will decide they don't want to pay the higher rent and vacate. Again, not always a bad thing, especially if it's a LIHTC deal. Depending on how long it takes to release the unit, this could result in a short-term negative because the unit's not producing any income. However, once the unit is leased, it's of course going to be a long-term positive once you actually get everything turned over. So accounting for the turnover expense as well is equally something that you should look at when you know you're getting ready to reach the end of the LIHTC period and you're getting ready to that whole year take all the rents from wherever they are to jumping them up to market rate. Let's call it a $400 a month delta with the other example we were giving with the 700 and 1100. The case is probably that 70% or so of the units of the tenants that are in there are going to vacate. I mean, they're probably not going to stay and pay the extra price. So at that time, you need to be willing and capable to not only pay for all of those turnover costs that's going to come in that year, make sure that's like a part of the actual business plan when you construct it, when you initially acquire the LIHTC deal. But also you need to make sure that you have contractors, that you maybe even potentially have a GC, depending on how quick you're looking to get ready to start turning things. And that it becomes a very streamlined kind of construction process to make sure that as tenants are leaving, you're able to quickly turn whatever needs to be turned. And you'll be able to do an inspection in those units. I mean, you can come up with some reason on how you got to change the AC filter or something to get into the unit to see what it actually looks like. What's the condition of it as this tenant or this resident gets ready to leave. So you can, and you'll do that all before it actually comes time to vacate everybody and do what it raise the rents. So you'll have a better understanding of what actually needs to be done so you can get the quotes and set all this up. So when the time comes to do it, it's a lot more streamlined. So then lastly, the actual LIHTC loss to lease play when you're acquiring an asset that is already a LIHTC deal that is exiting the program. So with LIHTC on your minds, let's look at what a value add strategy could look like. As a syndicator, when you acquire a LIHTC deal that is on its way out of the program, again, you don't receive any of those tax credits. Your sole value add is a pretty steep loss to lease that this low income property used to be. Chase Park's a great example of a LIHTC deal. When we acquired that property, it had 2 years left on what's called the cool down period. So technically it already exited the program. 15 years had expired, and now it was on a 3-year cool down period. What you were talking about earlier, Chris. The cool down period means that the property is no longer a part of the program itself, but it's designed to prevent you from immediately hiking up the rents to market. The upside of the cool down period is that any units where a tenant moves out of during that period and is then rented to a new tenant, that unit can immediately be taken to market rent. So our property actually now, Chase Park, August of 2023 is going to be when the cool down period is officially over and we can take all units to market. But that property already, because the program technically ended and we're just in the cool down period, about 55 to 60% of the complex is already at market rate. Now, when I say market rate, I mean, there's still even some loss to lease there because we kind of grew that a little slower than we grew the rest of them. But once we reach the end of this period, we're going to take everything up to market. So our loss to lease gap will truly diminish once the cool down period is officially over. So the cool down period simply grandfathers all the existing tenants into the program for another 3 years. However, once the period is over, you can take all the units immediately to market rate. So basically any tenant that stays. So once the program ends, if a tenant was already living there when the program was in existence, once it ends, if they stay and they just want to continue renewing their lease and they're on time paying tenants over the course of that 3-year time frame, then you have to continue to follow those LURA guidelines, those HUD guidelines, to make sure that you're staying within the bounds of the LIHTC program. So you'll have to follow whatever the uptick is every year that they create until the cool down period officially ends, and then you can take everything to market. And then there's no grandfathering anymore at that point.
So Josh, do tenants know that rule? Like, is it communicated as part of the program, or like? Are
I
they
don't
aware
honestly
of
know.
this?
I don't know if they know that they have the grandfather capability. But we tried to build as much community as we can with all of our residents, regardless if it's a LIHTC deal or whatever property it is. And so the community that we build, we try to be as open and transparent as possible. And the best way to do that is to show that you're adding value to their life. Now, you can add value to the property itself along the way, but adding value to their life is in, hey, I'm going to replace your carpet that's been nasty for ages. We're going to replace your HVAC units. If the leak's been roofing, we're going to replace all the roofs. We're going to get you a new playground here. We're going to install a new pool. We're going to put brand new gym in here and add a business center and do, like, park-wide Wi-Fi. And like, here's all the stuff that we're going to pay money for and add to make your life simpler, easier, better, make you feel like you're more at home here. And then in exchange, the rents are going to go up. You're going to have to start paying more per month for us to start adding all of what we're about to do. Now, it's not all going to happen at once, right? It's going to be a slow trickle, at least for this deal in particular, because when we bought it again, that we had like a 2-year runway of this cool down period. So it's going to take us a little bit to actually get to that point, but just know that it's coming. We're doing all these renovations to better your lives, but also to be able to raise the rents here. Give us a justification for raising it so that the residents, once we reach market rate, once we reach the end of this period, they're actually willing to pay, right? They have a desire to want to live here and to pay the market rate rents.
But until their 3-year period ends, you still have to stay within the bounds of, you can only raise rates based off of the LIHTC rates in the market.
If they were there when the program was running and they stay there and don't leave. If they leave for whatever reason during that cool down period, decide they don't want to live there anymore, or we hike up the rent $50 according to the program or whatever, and they don't want to pay the extra $50, they just leave. Once they leave, that unit is no longer considered grandfathered in. So a new person that comes in can immediately be taken to market.
And so when owners are selling their properties, they have to list it on there that it is a LIHTC property, correct?
They do. I underwrote a property one time, and it wasn't in one of our target markets. It was like up in Virginia or the Carolinas or something. 3 guys, 3 operators. This was like the second deal they had ever bought or owned or something. They owned it for about a year and a half. We're just looking to sell it. It was during, 2020, 2021 peak time when everything was piping hot, going like hotcakes. And they didn't even know their deal was a LIHTC deal. They literally had zero idea. Like their rents were at market, and that was like completely against all of the regulations and basically law for that asset. So even if we wanted to buy that property, I wasn't going to, because it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, because you would have to lower those rents to that price point, correct?
We probably would have caught heat. They would have caught heat, and we would have caught heat for buying that. And it was a fiasco. I couldn't believe they had owned the property for a year and a half, didn't know it was a LIHTC deal.
Okay, so how does an owner not know if their deal is a LIHTC deal?
I have zero idea.
The only reason why I'm asking is because if I'm starting in my search, I can put in there, I don't know if you can put that as a as a part of your search is that, I'm looking for LIHTC deal or
You
section
should be
8.
able to. I mean, at the very least, you can let your broker know that you're looking for the low income housing tax credit type deals. And you can get really specific with your plan. A lot of what we're talking about here, like, hey, I'm not looking to rehabilitate or construct new LIHTC assets, but if you could find me a low income housing deal that is getting ready to exit the program in about a 3-year time frame, then I'm 100% interested in, at the very least, taking a look at that
Perfect.
deal.
Okay.
So for Chase Park, periods ending in August 2023, at which point we'll meet the market rate delta of $300 to $400 a month, which will add over $6.5 million of value to a property that we paid $5.5 million for. Talk about a win, right? It's going to be huge upside once the program ends and we were able to meet all of that loss to lease for where we bought the property. It's another great thing I really like about LIHTC is when you acquire the asset, you're hopefully, if you're able to negotiate and the seller is willing to be realistic, you're able to buy the property at a much lower basis because the property is worth less because it's bringing in less income. So again, you buy it at a lower basis, buy cheap, add the value, just the loss to lease play, and then increase for any kind of refi or sale, which for this deal, this is going to be one of our perpetuity deals. We'll just refi out the investors and hold on for life. Again, we also acquired that A-class property in late 2022. Also LIHTC, had rents $500 a month below market rates. Best thing about a LIHTC deal is the fact that oftentimes there isn't much CapEx required to take rents up to where they could be. It's usually just that loss to lease and management play, which is much easier to handle than a huge construction project as seen above. And as seen above can still add massive value for you and your investors. The key is to make sure you're acquiring the LIHTC deals at the end of their cycle, like we're talking about. You don't want to buy a LIHTC deal that's 10 years left, not receive the tax credits, and be unable to raise the rents because it simply won't be affordable. There's a bunch of deals out there that have a ton of time left. Someone sent me a LIHTC deal once, and they're like, yeah, there's like 20 years left on it. I'm like, dude, come on, 20 years? You want me to hold on to this asset and be stuck paying this low price with no like tax benefits from a credit perspective? No, doesn't make any sense. Since rents are also lower than average in that market, LIHTC deals, again, are also more affordable, can be acquired at a lower cost per door. Like we bought Chase Park at $62,500 a door, and it was low income. And the property right across the street that was our direct comparable was already at market rate. And it sold for like 111 or 112K a door, like a month after we bought it. Literally bought it at like a half off. So some deals you see, some deals you may see with a really low cap rate, but it's artificially low due to the huge loss to lease upside of the program. So always pay close attention to these types of deals. That's it. I'm sure you guys have more questions. Maybe not.
So Josh, since the upside, the value added is obvious, I would assume the sellers, they obviously they know about this, that you're going to make a bunch of money with this strategy. So are they not, increasing the price because of that? Are you saying you can get a deal like this at a price kind of as if there was not this value add, or you're going to pay a premium because there is this obvious strategy?
No, you're gonna get the discount because you're paying for the actuals, right? And everything's up for negotiation, so you choose what you decide to pay. But my recommendation and the two deals that we bought, you're going to pay for the actual, performance of the property. So if the property is performing at whatever NOI, divide that by the cap rate, this is what I would willingly be able to pay for this property. And since I know it's like whatever, $300, $400, $500 a month below where the market rate rent is, I know I'm going to pay, $300, $400, $500 per month times or divided by the cap rate less per door. So I should get a pretty good deal on the purchase. And as far as like why sellers maybe want to sell these types of deals, couldn't really tell you. One that we bought from was just looking to get out of that market entirely. The A-class deal, he had a bunch of properties in like California or something, and he just didn't want to be in Mississippi anymore. And then the other one was looking to 1031. So he had another deal that he was looking at that he really wanted to buy, and he just wanted to sell this and take all the proceeds over into another deal, which was a headache having to work through the process of the 1031 because he was so anal about how he wanted to structure the sale due to the 1031 and blah, blah, blah. But I'm glad we went through the process because Chase Park's been a great deal.
Josh, correct me if I'm wrong here, but so after a 10-year period, the person that currently owns the LIHTC deal isn't receiving the tax credits anymore, right? They stop after 10 years.
Yeah, they already have all their credits.
So isn't it in their best interest to get rid of that property as soon as the LIHTC expires at 15 years or whatever the time frame is?
I don't really know. And again, it's going to be up to each individual investor. I feel like if it's me and I'm building this property and I know I'm going to own it for 10, 15, whatever years anyway, and getting all these credits and doing all this work. I mean, but I like the perpetuity style hold anyway. So for me, it's like I might as well just hold long term. And then I know at year 15, we're going to get a massive like boost of rent. We're going to get a massive boost of income potential, massive boost of value. And then we may just do another giant refi or something at that point. Or maybe we'll do all the work to take the deal back up to market and then we'll sell at peak price, 1031 that if we wanted to do that or whatever, take the proceeds, buy another one. That's how I feel like I would want to do it. I would hate to leave so much value on the table, just being like, there's only 2 years left. Let's just sell it. Like, bro, it's just wait 3-4 more years, 2 years for it to end, 1 to 2 years for you to finish all that you have to do and then sell it. But then some people are always have the blinders on of like, what if the market isn't hot? What if this deal that I'm looking at passes up and I can't buy it? And what if I miss out on this opportunity? So it's people's emotions that gets them all antsy and makes them want to sell a deal that has high potential. That's what I would think.
Makes sense. Yeah. I wonder if there's restrictions on the original owner being allowed to do that. Like, because I feel like maybe there's different compliance regulations for the person that made it a LIHTC deal to not be able to just switch out of it. I don't know.
I don't think there would be. I mean, they have all the rules and regulations specific to whoever owns the property. It's not necessarily specific to who built the property. It's cool down if there is a cool down, and there's actually no cool down in the LIHTC that we bought in Mississippi, but there was a 3-year cool down in the LIHTC that we bought in Alabama. So again,
so every LIHTC's different, structured differently.
Every state is different.
I see.
Interesting.
Really,
So how would you check if your deal is a LIHTC? Like you gave this crazy example of those syndicators not even knowing. So it seems there's a little risk that one day it could happen to us essentially. So who would you reach out to just to check if a deal is a LIHTC deal or not, basically?
I'll send you the link, Oliver.
yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I would ask the broker and hope that they have the knowledge and information that there actually is one. But then, yeah, like the link he just sent you, you can go to the LIHTC program website and search that property and see if it's part of the program.
Awesome.
And that's a good way, at least this is what I've been doing. It's a good way to scope out which ones are expiring or which ones could potentially be expiring. So HUD doesn't, excuse me, HUD doesn't actually say when the deal is no longer a LIHTC deal, like when it expires, but they do say when it originates. So you can kind of estimate and guess, although it might be a little different with every deal. At least that's what I've seen.
It should just be, it should just be 15 years unless they've extended. And then if they have extended, then that information should also be in that document as well. And if they do extend, hopefully it gives you the specifics of how long they've extended, because there's like options. Anybody else?
I'm just looking up LIHTC in Houston. Oh,
I did
LIHTC database.
something cool I learned about LIHTC though is so the state gets to decide every year basically what their priority is, and they get to prioritize either new development or rehabilitation on an annual basis. So like for Tennessee, for example, they decided in 2023 they were more interested in rehabilitation. So they've been issuing the higher tax credit, the 9% tax credit, to rehabs more than they have to new developments. And then last year it was the opposite of that, where they issued primarily all of the 9% tax credits to new developments and not so much to rehabs. So you kind of have to follow what the state's doing a lot too with these deals.
Yeah, definitely state specific. But it's a great program, great model, great opportunity, lots of value add, and it's become one of our favorite models, really, like coinciding with the perpetuity model syndication structure. The execution of the business plan of one of a LIHTC deal has become one of our favorite, just because it's so much more streamlined. I mean, yeah, there's some red tape on the guidelines and regulations and whatever of how you have to operate and what rents can be, but especially if you find a really good property manager that's really experienced in LIHTC and how to effectively manage and execute a LIHTC deal, then I mean, Chase Park's been super seamless, like how they've effectively managed it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, your property manager, right, they're going to be your on-site boots on the ground, making sure that the rents that you are collecting and charging are within the boundaries. Of course, you're going to have your asset management oversight, which is a lot of what we're talking about today, but they're going to be filling out all the paperwork and doing all of the documentation. I was told that they actually had to give a 60-day notice of rent increase when they were getting ready to increase rents when someone's still in the program. So if they're still in the program, and let's call back to that example of $700 a month, take it up to $775 a month is wherever like market is. You have to, there's like a specific form you have to fill out for that resident and that unit. You send it in to the city's Laura LIHTC program people 60 days in advance, informing them that you're getting ready to raise their rent to XYZ amount. And I was like, really, that's really weird. I would have thought maybe that would make more sense for Section 8, since Section 8 is going to be the one that Section 8 program, they kind of like pay for it, you know, so they have to approve the tenant. But it was interesting to hear that the same thing had to be done for LIHTC. But anyway, like I didn't know that, but the property manager knew that. So always great to find a property manager that's really experienced in like the type of program, if there is a unique kind of setup that you're doing with this asset. And then of course, if not, you always just want to find a property manager that's more familiar with that market than you know, a different property manager, or maybe even yourself.
Nice.
Sweet.
Do you know if you can combine these with the there's property tax relief programs now? And if it's like the 20/80 rule, if you have 20% of your properties at the 80% of the mean income of that area, you can eliminate the property tax for up to 75 years.
Isn't that like an opportunity zone deal?
No, it's not an opportunity zone. It's specific to you can get it underwritten. I've talked to a couple of different groups on it. They set aside certain funds for certain programs. You have to get it, but they're only doing it in certain states right now that I know of. Can you combine those? You know?
Bro, I don't even know about that program, so
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to answer that question. What is it called again? Do you know?
I don't. My neighbor is the CFO of. They have a bunch of commercial property and multifamily property, like they're massive. So I'm going to connect with her a little bit. She's the one that just like briefly mentioned it in passing. I'm going to connect with her and just kind of get a little bit more details. But I mean, if you're already at the lower rate, I don't know why. I mean, because one takes the income tax, the other one takes the property tax. So if you could do both, I mean, it would be huge.
That would be huge. Opportunity zones too, which is what you made me think of with that, is another great thing. If you buy a property and operate it within whatever boundaries that particular state's, actually, I think it's actually that particular like city. I think opportunity zones are designated by city. That's why if you look at different cities, you'll see where they actually designate opportunity zones, and they designate them where they want growth. So areas like, I think Atlanta has a lot of opportunity zones in like downtown. Like they just want a lot of revival in the downtown area. So they're giving these tax incentives for that. And then there's other areas, other cities where the opportunity zones are legitimately in areas that you wouldn't ever want to step foot in. So then
Yeah.
not many people are really investing there because they don't want to invest there anyway, but they're trying to incentivize people to. But anyway, interesting to see that. And so the opportunity zone itself, you acquire the property. I forget the exact like rule or regulation you have to follow within. I'm pretty sure it's just you have to buy it. And I don't think there's any kind of like low income specific. I think it's just that you have to hold on and operate that asset for at least 10 years. Like they just don't want a lot of transaction volume. And then if you do, once you surpass that 10th year, literally like the day after, then you never have to pay any capital gains tax on any of the like profits that you get from the sale.
The one thing about that program is that one of the factors is if you have to put, is it 100% dollars in that property of what you bought it for in renovation in certain ones, or it has to be an asset that was never depreciable before.
Yeah, I wonder if that would be a
So that's why people
city.
buy land and do it, because they buy the land, they build it, and they've already, it doesn't matter. So they've already overcome that. So a lot of people build to get a part of that, but you can buy, like, I was talking to the real unrealistic SEC attorney, and he did mention you could buy a residential house because that was never before depreciable, unless the only caveat you'd have to check to see if they took depreciation for like home office. If they ever did, then you couldn't take it. But if their house was never depreciable, you could do it on that house, any house. But the renovation edition is 100% of what you bought it for. So it could be, it need to be pretty run down to accomplish that.
A lot of different programs out there that we could dive deeper into, because there's so many different various value add strategies. And what we may do is we may just pick apart each one of them and dive into the specifics of how to like actually target a property that has this ability to add that level of value. And then what does the actual execution look like of adding that value? What are some maybe, I don't know, streamlined things? Like if you know you're going to need to do the kitchen every time, what's a streamlined way to do the same kitchen every time? Things of that caliber. We've talked about a lot of the different ways that there are to actually add value. And so I think what we could do is just get more granular with each one of those.
Yeah.
Since there's so many.
I'll get some more details on that one program I was telling you about. I think there's 7 or 14 states are doing it. So I'll have that hopefully the next time.
All right. Dylan, I just see you over there blowing bubbles, man. What's going on?
Dylan worked on a remodel and sold that bad boy.
Oh yeah,
Congratulations.
Oh, yeah?
thank you.
Shoot, yeah. Tell us the big win.
Got the numbers on here on LinkedIn. Put me on the spot.
I'll put you on the spot. I just wanted to know about your bubblegum blowing.
Let's see. It was purchased it for 192,500, rehab 84,000, ARV 335,000.
I can't do quick math in my head. How much money you make?
I can't do quick math in my head either. It took up too much of my time though. I'm not doing any more fix and flips. That's why I'm in this course.
About 60 grand minus the selling cost.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Sprinkle with the quick math. That or he pulled his calculator out, rapid speed.
Yeah.
No calculator required, sir.
Did you
Dylan, I
calculate
feel
that
you.
roofing cost? It's probably is a calculator in his head.
Oh,
How long did it take you, Dylan, from start to finish to sell?
Too long, 5 months.
60 grand, 5 months, not too bad. Pretty good.
That's like he said, all the selling costs. Closing
Less
costs.
probably $17,000 in closing costs, his property taxes and insurance that he was paying, plus his hard money lending if he did that. So he probably made 20 grand.
No hard money lending.
Oh, there you go. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Jonathan's
That
turning
would've
the
knocked-
apart, man.
That would have knocked me out of the park if I did that. I had an
We had
awful, go ahead.
we had two flips crush our hopes and dreams 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So they absolutely destroyed us. We did some really profitable ones like a few years before that, and then these two totally just took us to the cleaners. It was ridiculous.
Like hundreds of thousands of dollars lost. I mean, how much are we talking?
About 160 between two of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was fun.
I had a contractor that convinced me that he owned a contracting company, but in reality, he was just an employee for the contracting company. And so this was realistically his first flip that he helped me with. And I was the one having to correct his mistakes. So that's
Wow.
why it took way too long. I mean, he put vinyl flooring over a hole in the subfloor.
Nothing wrong with that as long as the vinyl flooring is an inch and a quarter thick.
Definitely wouldn't have passed when the FHA inspector came in. That's for sure. So I had to,
Oh,
but at the end of the day, we got it done.
made some money. House flipping horror stories.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't flip houses, y'all. It's good money in the short term when things work out, and then it's not so good money when they don't.
I'm just happy I got out positive. It would have been awful if I lost my ass on it.
Positive is positive.
Yep.
Going back to the opportunity zone thing, I know a guy here in the Bay Area. He sold a tech company, made millions and millions, and he invested a big chunk into opportunity zone deal, and he's building like a 50-unit building ground up, and he's super excited about it. And I think
Shoot, I would be too if I made millions and millions selling.
I don't know the details, but I just know it's the very nice example of opportunity zone.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I was talking to a guy just last week who was in the middle of doing a flip. And he was thinking about jumping into the mastermind. He's like, yeah, I got a little bit of money liquid now, but I got this flip I'm finishing. Anyway, we talked on like a Monday. It was either this week or last week. We talked on a Monday, touch base on a Wednesday or Thursday. He's like, turns out I'm going to lose over 100 grand, man. Sorry, man. Now's not a good time for me. It's like, oh no, dude, 100% respect that. That's a rough flip. I was like, how did it turn so sour so fast? And he's like, oh, you don't even want to know. He was so upset about it. He couldn't tell me. I was like, wow, it's a lot of money to lose in a couple of days.
Yeah. The day I put mine on the market, I was. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The day I put mine on the market,
There's
I
an
was telling
excitement
everyone
ratio.
the day I put mine on the market, I was telling everyone how I hit my expectation for rehab costs on the dot. Like I think I had $100 left. And I had an inspector come and he told me, keep in mind, I had 2 roofers on the roof prior to this. He said, yeah, you're gonna have to replace the entire roof. The HVAC shot, water heater has a problem with it. One of the water spouts is leaking. It cost me an extra like 12 grand out of pocket. And so I'm like, man, I really should have just kept my mouth shut. Yeah, these unexpected costs, they hit you hard with these flips.
Yeah, so as I was starting to say, there's a thing called a excitement factor that apparently even a lot of realtors don't know exists. And so you can have an excitement factor 0 to 100 for a certain area, any given area. So one of our flips we bought wasn't an excitement factor of a 87 when we bought it. The other one was a 96. And when we sold them, the 2 areas became an excitement factor area of a 31 and of a 4 in Austin and Cedar Park, Texas. So like that's how fast things can turn when stuff is going south is the areas that people have a desire and an excitement to want to move to.
What is this excitement factor and how do you see that number? Where do you get that from?
I'm gonna be honest with you. My the realtor that I do a ton of make ready work for his clients, because I own a remodeling company. He's the one that sent me over like to show me, and I have no idea where he pulled it from. But
Probably
it's a thing that
MLS, I would think.
exists, I guess. So, but it's not, it's not like one of the blatant obvious, key things that you see.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing
So, yeah.
though is that in multifamily, things can't change so drastically, and you're not going to lose so much money so quickly because the valuation is much more tied to the actual income that we're producing, which is why we're talking about LIHTC and loss to lease and bringing it full circle. Multifamily is great.
Yeah, with multifamily, you just get to see yourself bleed for a couple of years before you really go under. If it goes sour.
Yeah, it's a slow drag.
Yeah.
Slow bleed. I mean, there's definitely some people hurting. It's going to be a lot of opportunity here in the near term over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. It's over $1 trillion of bridge debt that's going to be maturing in the next 1 to 2 years. And it's all specific to multifamily.
I was talking to what's his name? The director of financing at Walker and Dunlop today, and he was telling me that they're hedging on the best real estate market in multifamily in the past 10 years happening in December/January of this year. So at the end, Q4 this year, Q1 next year, they're thinking that's going to be the best transactional market in 10 years.
I believe it.
For that reason, because a lot of bridge debt's going to start expiring, and a lot of people that are delusional right now with their pricing. And at Josh, the deal that I sent you earlier today, it's a great example of that. And that a lot of people that are kind of delusional right now are going to start realizing pretty quickly that they're running out of options here at the end of the year.
Yeah, the thing is, they just haven't, it's not painful enough for them yet. We haven't hit the inflection point of pain. Once it's painful enough and they realize they have no other options, that's when the inflection point in the market's going to happen, where there's going to be a lot more buying opportunity. When they literally only have 2 options to either refinance or sell, and refinance doesn't make sense because rates are still too high and they're still going to be negatively cash flowing, even if they go through the entire process of a refi. And they've already lost enough money over the course of the 1, 2, however many years that they've been losing money since rates went up. So the only option is to sell. And suddenly when you have to sell, you have to meet the market if that's literally the only other option you have. And the market is going to be where it is today, maybe even worse. Cap rates are going to be much higher and opportunities are going to be much greater. And so if we're all just properly preparing ourselves and positioning ourselves to take advantage of that when the time comes, then, I mean, again, I guess no one has a crystal ball to know that it's exactly going to happen in December or January, but the time will come in the near term that's going to happen. And we just have to be ready so we can take advantage of that opportunity.
When you go to a busy local restaurant on Friday and there's only 30% of the restaurant filled, that's when you should start looking at buying real estate.
Yeah.
That's when people are in pain.
When they can't go to McDonald's on Friday night.
Yep. You go to a Friday right now. That's what I tell people is we go out to eat a lot. And when we go out to eat, they're still busy. There's not enough pain yet.
That's the reason why the Fed raised the interest rates 1/4 basis point yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also
a whole quarter.
Yeah, so they feel that it's going to eventually slow down because you still got low unemployment numbers. And then you, of course, earnings just came out this past couple of weeks. So you're still showing a lot of companies that are reporting profits because they said the consumer is still spending. They haven't really exactly slowed down yet. So your opportunity will probably be around that 4th quarter, early 1st quarter, at which point the Fed says that there's a possibility that they're going to have to start to cut rates. But that's the reason why they had to raise them in the first place. Because if you were at low 0, there's nowhere to cut to. So now we're at 5.5, 5 and 5 1/4 Fed funds rate. So you'll be able to get lower rates in the new year when you're acquiring. So hopefully be some deals too.
Well, there's going to be deals.
Josh, we need to start a pool of where everyone thinks the rates are going to be. Everybody puts in $20 where we all think the rates are going to be by December this year.
So whoever is the closest wins the pot. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, yep.
Okay. Well, what are they now?
We can do an over under.
I know they just went up 25 basis points, but is prime at like 8.25
5 and a
now?
quarter.
5.25?
Now prime is
well,
8 1/4. The
Yeah,
Fed funds is
exactly.
5 1/4.
Fed funds is 5.25.
5. Okay. That makes sense. Because they all follow.
But yeah, for
different-
our context, for our real estate context, prime is more important because that's what more of these local banks are basing their rates off of.
Right, which you're gonna be looking at, you're gonna see more of that on your 10-year and your 20-year rate.
Whoop whoop. We got a group of some smart folk here. I don't know about y'all, but I'm learning some stuff today. Everyone's got some piece of information that they have that they're like, oh yeah, what about this? Yeah. Well, that's all I have. It is 6:47. Unless anyone's got any last parting questions, we can call it a night. All right. So today is Thursday, the 4th. Next Monday is the 8th. We will 100% be here on the 8th. And again, that'll be more of the, I hate to use the word beginner, but it's like the only thing I can think of. Just
Your partners will be on that one.
basic. Yeah. Yeah, they will. They told me they will. Maybe they're lying. I hope they're not lying, but they said they'll be on that call and we'll be going over something in the basics.
Josh.
We're working. What's that?
Oh, no, finish your thought. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we're working through the process of actually creating a more specific curriculum to give you guys information in advance. Be like, hey, next week, maybe even the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks out, every Monday, every Thursday, or this Thursday, we're going over this, next Thursday, we're going over that. I think to go, you had mentioned that initially, I think, Chris, of just like knowing something. And so we're piecing that together. We had a call this morning going over some of that, and then Matt got busy and had to leave. So me and Reggie tried to do some more, but anyway, what were you saying, Samir?
I was gonna say before we part ways, I have a couple terminology questions to ask you.
Terminology questions. All right. Does everyone want to listen to these terminology questions, or are you all bored?
Still here.
Hell
I'm
yeah, I'd love to
excited.
learn terminology.
So the first of which is cap rates that are based on on actual trailing operations inclusive of replacement reserves. What does that mean?
Who sent you that?
A financing guy.
Repeat
so-
that back. Maybe throw it in the chat box so I can just read it
Okay.
and simmer on it a little bit.
I think it just means it's just the T12 that also includes the reserves that are held by the lender
Right.
or by them.
Based on actual trailing operations. So we're going over actuals, not pro forma, and they're inclusive of replacement reserves. Basically,
That's pretty
stating,
typical. I mean, it sounds,
yeah, that's what
there's
I
a
would
lot
think.
of words, but it's just like,
Okay, so
I
here's
don't know
here's-
who just said, but it was just like, I think
He's trying to
Jonathan said.
define what a cap rate is. It sounds like he's
but
trying to use
here's-
big
okay,
words to make
here's
it
the
seem
second
like,
part of the sentence so I just put it in chat. The pro forma rates range 50 to 150 basis point spread over in place. So what's the difference between the first thing and the second thing? Because obviously actuals are different than the pro forma rates.
so he's talking
but-
about pro forma cap rates are ranging 50 to 150 basis point spread over the in place cap rate.
Yes.
What is he basing that on? Is he basing that on like macro
okay,
level caps?
maybe I should premise it by saying this. He sent me a list of comparable sales for a property I was looking at, and this is in regard to the comparable sales, the list of comparable sales and their cap rates.
Samir, can you share your screen and show them the screenshot that you sent me earlier?
Yeah, I can.
So what he's
Maybe
basically doing is doing a forecast saying, okay, based on these pro formas and what you're expected, you should be able to get. This is how your
So
range
this
is.
is
Yeah,
this is
I
what
think
he
it's
sent
pretty
me.
basic. The guy's just, he's writing it out to try to sound a lot smarter than he is.
Dan's
Like it's
calling
just
him
saying
out.
the in-place cap rate, it's the cap rate you're buying it at, and then the pro forma cap rate. That's literally what he's saying.
So the cap rate, repeat that sentence one more time.
Meaning it's the cap rate you're buying it at,
Yeah,
which is the T12, and then the pro
Yeah.
forma cap rate. That's all he has to say. He doesn't have to like make the whole thing.
okay. So, but I guess he's saying the cap rates that are displayed right here, those are the in-place actual cap rates, not the pro formas, because they're based on the sale of these assets.
OAR, I think it's operating actual rates. Or actual return.
I don't know what OAR is. I've never seen that metric. I know what a cap rate is, and I know what current rates are, in-place rates, actuals, and pro forma rates are. I
I've
don't know
never
what.
seen that term either.
Dan, have you ever seen OAR before?
No, this guy's getting too complicated for no reason.
That's
What
what,
I ass-
yeah.
It's actually
What
fun.
I
I actually know
assumed-
that. I actually know that.
What I assumed is that the OAR is the pro forma, and what he's trying to say is that the market cap rate right now is ranging between 50 to 150 basis points under what the pro forma is right there.
Right. So he's trying to say that cap rates are like what, 2.5%, 150 basis points below
That's what I
4%.
think. That's what I thought he meant by that.
OAR is oh my God.
Derivative?
It's a derivative of overall rates. OAR is overall rates. It's an income rate for a total property interest that reflects the relationship between a single year's net operating income expectancy and the total property value. It makes no distinction between recapture and yield.
So it's simply an in-place cap rate.
Cap rate, OAR, overall capitalization rate,
Okay. So
is
it's just a
often referred
fancy
to as cap
acronym.
rate.
Why
Okay.
would it be called? It should be OCR, overall capitalization rate. What? How's A?
Overall,
That's so weird.
Overall rate.
yeah, overall rate.
That's literally what it says on Google.
Yeah,
That's funny.
it's a variable derived from dividing up.
Well, no one in this
Okay.
business
NOI by the
uses
property
that
value.
as a metric. Let's put it that way. So I don't know.
This guy just wants Walker and Dunlop to look all fancy.
He wants himself to
I know this kid. I know this kid, Jack. It's actually very funny.
How do you know? I just met him today.
Yeah, because I work as a mortgage broker, so I've spoken to him before about some deals.
Because Dan is of the who's who.
Yeah.
Dan,
I guess so. I guess so.
That's right. That's the only
That's why
reason
That's
why
why.
we talk.
That's why I don't show my face. I don't want you
Guys,
to
that's
know
why
what-
that's why we never get to see his face. I was just about to say that.
I'm actually working out, so outside.
Nice.
I didn't want to like.
Well, it looks like you're just sitting down. I don't know if you're working out.
I'm between reps.
Sitting out, not working out.
Like most people at the gym, they're just holding their phone up there. the machine.
Hogging the bench. Like, hey, can I use that machine, bro? You've been sitting there for 30 minutes on your phone.
I'm on a call, fellas. I'm on a call.
Hey babe, I'm gonna go work out. And then he goes and gets on this call for an hour and a half.
You know it.
Oh,
Fucking
good
wrong.
times. Hey, how would everyone here like? I know we're all spread out all across the entire United States, but how would everyone like to come down to the beach for a weekend or something? and
Three
Yes.
Beach Council?
Hang out in
Hell
person.
yeah.
In
Oh.
Mobile, aren't y'all's beaches like all littered and everything?
Where's your beach?
Samir,
Shots fired.
be honest there.
No, not Mobile. I was thinking we go either we go across the bay in Gulf Shores Orange Beach, which is a super popular tourist destination, or we could go right over into Florida and do the beaches in Indiana and do like
Dunes.
Pensacola,
Mobile got the best
Destin.
beach. We can't trash talk Mobile Beach if no one else has got a beach near them.
Isn't that right? You can come to my brownish Galveston water if you like.
Hey, I've
mean,
got
I
a
got the
man-made
Jersey-
lake a couple miles down the road.
So realistically,
Sure, in the summer.
as we're talking about this, what is everyone's we're just spitballing here. This is truly just some, I guess it's all dudes in here. It's truly just bro talk at this point.
Are you still recording though, by the way?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
Fine, we'll stop it.